another year ends, so of course it's time for me to do another best comics of that year. So today we're going to be discussing the best comics of 2020. Well, in my opinion, 2020 was kind of soft when it came to good comics. There weren't a whole lot of great comics this year. There were still some really good comics that I highly recommend to you guys, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I've been doing this is like, what, the fifth year in a row or something like that, fourth or fifth year in a row that I've done my best comics of the year video, so I'm keeping that tradition alive. And yeah, so if you don't know how to do these videos, it's not like an arbitrary top 10 comics of the year or something like that. I have different categories like best ongoing series, best limited series, best new artist, stuff like that. I think it's more interesting doing it that way instead of just here's the best comics, although that's fun too. But yeah, so without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start off with best ongoing series, and the best ongoing series was really easy for me to choose because it's the same best ongoing that I chose last year, which is Gideon Falls. And Gideon Falls is fantastic. If you don't know what it is, it's an indie book from Andrea Sorrentino, the artist, and Jeff Lemire, the writer, and they do just such a fantastic job with this series. It's been going on for a couple years now. It just ended with issue 27. It literally just ended this past December. It was a fantastic book. I'm so sad that it's over, but they also teased at the end that it might not be over. They might eventually return to it. They definitely left the door open to return to it, so we'll see how that goes. But it's basically a horror book that kind of turns into a dimension hopping adventure, except not really like adventure in like Indiana Jones fun way, but kind of like we're running from terror and something's coming and oh god, what is coming after us, like that type of adventure. But it's really freaking good, and I like the cast of characters that we got. They're all really interesting, and the story that's been like weaved into it from issue 1 to now is fantastic, and the art it's the most beautiful book on the market, in my opinion. I love Andre and Sorrentino's art. I understand if not everyone likes his art. It is a unique style, but I personally love it. It's so trippy, and it fits Gideon Falls perfectly. Like, I couldn't see anyone else drawing this book. Like, his art fits this, like, his style fits it perfectly. It's so great. And yeah, I've sung the praises of this book before and this creative team. I'll buy literally anything that Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino do together. They're so good. I love their run on Green Arrow, on Old Man Logan, and Gideon Falls now. They're so good. But yeah, Gideon Falls, it's 27 issues. It was an ongoing series that just ended. So if you're looking for a good comic to binge, if you're into sort of horror comics, definitely read Gideon Falls. Again, you can read all 27 issues. I believe all the volumes except for the last one's out, but that one should be coming out soon, so you can even get them all in trade and read them. Highly recommend. Definitely go check it out. Now on to the best limited series, which is The Last God, another book that I've sung the praises of a lot. If you've been to any of my streams or watched some of my videos this past year, I've talked about The Last God a lot. It's a great book that everyone should read. Philip Kennedy Johnson is the writer of it. He's the guy that's going to be writing Superman. And Riccardo Federici does the art, which is gorgeous, by the way. And yeah, this is a medieval fantasy book, so it's in the vein of like Game of Thrones, Witcher, Lord of the Rings, something like that. So if you're into that style, like that genre, definitely check this out. It's an adventure book. The world building in it is really good. It's something like this book like kind of came out of nowhere. I had heard about it, and then it released, and I couldn't get my hands on the first issue. I heard it was really good. I tried to track down the first issue, finally got my hands on it, and then I add the book to my pull list immediately because I was like, that first issue is really good. The world building in it is fantastic. Again, it's like an adventure book. You have this like group of people going from point A to point B, and you also have a sort of A and B plot. So while you have this group of people trying to go from one point to another, you also have a people that were making that same journey like a couple decades earlier. So you're seeing the mirrored like version of each of their adventures and the difference, and it's really cool. I don't want to give too much away about the plot because it is something that you should definitely read. And yeah, just fantastic book. Highly recommend it. Go check it out. The Last God. It's the only DC book that's on my best comics of 2020, which is surprising because I love DC. As you can tell, I'm more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy. I love them both, but I definitely say I'm more of a DC guy. But to me, DC didn't do too well in 2020. They had some good stuff, like Detective Comics was solid. But for the most part, DC kind of let me down in 2020, but The Last God did not. It was a great book. Next up, we have Best New Artist of 2020. Now, this isn't an artist that like started in 2020 or anything like that. This is an artist that I discovered in 2020. And for me, this is Nick Klein, who's the current artist on Thor. Now, this is a guy that I think I like read an issue that he did on Deadpool or something before, but 2020 is the year that I really got introduced to him, and his art is fantastic. I really like it. I think it fits Thor really well. I don't know why this guy isn't on a lot more books because he does such a good job. Man, his Thor is great, and I love the way he draws everything in that world. So yeah, shout out Nick Klein. He did such a good job. Like, I really enjoyed his art. And again, he's a guy that I think I like read one issue of like the Deadpool that he did the art on before, but he was never anyone that like I heard stuff about. I was like, oh man, this Nick Klein guy, he's great. He's like a really good artist, and he's not really an up and comer or anything. Again, this isn't like a new artist, or this is someone that could have been in the for this category. This is someone that could have been in the comic book industry for decades. It's just like I just found out about this year, and Nick Klein's a guy that I just found out about this year, and he is really good and one of the best artists at Marvel. And moving on to best one shot, and for me the best one shot was this book right here, Pulp, from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. This is a fantastic book. I really like it. It's a one shot. It's just like a hardcover one shot that they did. It's not ongoing or collected edition or anything like that, but it's a really good book that I highly recommend. Like all these books on this list, of course they're all good if it's on the best 2020 list, but yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I love the creative team of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I talked about before with the Fade Out or Kill or Be Killed. They're one of my favorite indie creative teams. They always kill it, and with this book they did great. My only criticism was this book is I wanted more. Like, I wish it was longer. But yeah, it's about a guy it's called Pulp because he was a Pulp Fiction writer, and he wrote some of those like sort of serialized Western stories back in like I believe this like in the 30s and 40s. Yeah, this takes place like during like World War II, like the beginning of World War II, and there's a lot going on there. And again, there's like it deals with like friendship and this guy getting older, and like there's a lot of really cool elements to the story. Again, I don't want to spoil any of these things because with this list, I'm hoping some of this stuff you guys didn't read, so I don't want to spoil it too heavily for you because I want you guys to like go into it without knowing everything that's gonna happen. But yeah, Pulp, great book. Of course, Sean Phillips' art is always great, and yeah, it's really short, so there's not much I can really say without actually spoiling the book. But just check it out if if the little bit of details I gave you interested you all. Definitely check it out, and it's pretty cheap too because it is a short book. I think it's only like 100 pages or something like that. But it's worth it. It's a good book, solid read. I enjoyed it. My only complaint again is I wanted more. And then my final category is Best New Series, and that just means a series that started in 2020. And my favorite new series is Wolverine from Benjamin Percy. I think he's doing a great job with X-Men books. He's the only guy that I actually have both of his X-Men books on my pull list. I don't read any of the other X-Men books. I read X-Men all the way up until issue 9, and then it kind of lost me. I was like, I don't care. None of the other X-Men books I really cared about, but I really enjoy X-Force, and I love Wolverine. The story that he's telling right now is great, involving vampires. It's really cool, bringing Dracula into it with Omega Red. I really like that story, but it kind of got sidetracked because of X of Swords. But even Percy's X of Swords issues were really good, even though I didn't read the full story arc. I only read the tie-ins with X-Force and Wolverine, but I heard that story was not very good, but his issues were good and fun and entertaining, and yeah, I just like what he's doing with Wolverine. He's got two solid artists on there with him, with Victor Bogdanovic and Adam Kubert, so yeah, they're great artists on there. Benjamin Percy's one of the best, probably maybe the best writer at Marvel right now in terms of like consistency and how good he is. I really enjoy everything he's done at Marvel, and it's sad that DC let him go because he's doing great on Nightwing until they kind of pushed him off and did the whole Rick Grayson thing. Now that's it for categories, but there are a few other books that I want to shout out, like Bounty Hunters from Ethan Sachs, who's the guy that did Old Man Hawkeye that I talked about a lot with the year that series came out. But he's doing a Star Wars book called Bounty Hunters, and it's really good. And it's about a guy that is literally space Jonah Hex, and if you've watched this channel for any amount of time, you know that I love Jonah Hex, and it sucks that DC does not have a current book with him, but he's in the Star Wars universe at Marvel right now, so that's cool, and Ethan Sachs is doing a great job with that series. I'm really enjoying it. Peter J. Tomasi's doing a great job with Detective Comics, and I love Brad Walker's art, who was the guy that last year for me was my favorite new artist. Also, I forgot to mention Daredevil is fantastic. That's a series that I'm reading in trade, so I've only read the first 4 volumes, but it is so good. That last volume, volume 4 that I read, had the Battle of New York, and it was freaking amazing. I loved it. We had Daredevil and Kingpin teaming up. If you read the series, then you know why that makes sense, but it is fantastic and amazing. And just Chip Zdarsky is also another guy at Marvel that just everything he touches turns into gold right now. He's really good. He's on a hot streak. Definitely read Daredevil. But yeah, that's about it. Please let me know in the comments below what are your guys' favorite comics of 2020, and I hope you guys have a good 2020 and hope you guys have an even better 2021. See y'all later.